Hey family. Hey, and welcome to week 1 of our study on the parables. As we journey through the teachings of Jesus over these 4 weeks, as we discover who Jesus is, we want to understand what he says and what he's teaching us and what he's saying to us as followers of Jesus. And one of the main ways he taught was these things called parables. These stories, these short stories or illustrations that taught a larger lesson. And tonight we covered the parable of the sower from Mark chapter 4, verses 13 through 20. And let's jump right in. Let's check out those verses in the Gospel of Mark today. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4, starting in verse 13, it says this, "And he said to them, 'Do you not understand this parable? How then will you understand all the parables? The sower sows the word, and these are the ones along the path where the word is sown. When they hear, Satan immediately comes and takes away the word that is sown in them. And these are the ones sown on rocky ground, the ones who, when they hear the word, immediately receive it with joy, and then they have no root in themselves, but endure for a little while. Then, when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately they fall away. And others are the ones sown among thorns. They are those who hear the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches and desires for other things enter in and choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. But those that were sown on the good soil are the ones who hear the word and accept it and bear fruit 30-fold, and 60-fold, and 100-fold. And that is our teaching, our reading from the Gospel of Mark today, in chapter 4 of the Gospel of Mark. In this parable, the sower, as we encounter it, we talked about the fact that we've encountered this concept of a sower. Now, if you're not from a farming area or agriculture or a rural area, this might be something you don't understand or know about. But a sower is a farming concept or a farming term of someone who goes out and tosses out seed or distributes seed or launches out seed to be planted with the hope that it springs up into vegetation or produce or a crop of some sort. And Jesus uses this parable of the sower, that there's someone out there and he's throwing out this seed, and it's landing on different types of soil. It's landing on rocky soil, it's landing on hard soil, it's landing on thorny soil, shallow soil, and good soil, ultimately. And he talks about these different types of soils. But as Jesus uses this illustration of the sower and the seed and the hard and the different types of soil, what he's talking about is the seed is the message of the gospel. The message that Jesus came down from heaven, from perfection, into eternity, or into our creation to earth, lived a perfect life, died a death he did not deserve, so you and I could have life, so we could have a relationship with him. That's the message of the gospel. That's the seed that's being thrown out, okay? And the different types of soil represent the different types of people, all of us. And Jesus talks about 4 different types of soil. He talks about hard soil, people who hear the gospel but don't receive it, don't want anything to do with Jesus. He talks about shallow soil, people who hear the gospel, people who get excited about Jesus and get excited about church and all this, but then they walk away when they get bored, or they walk away when something better comes along. He talks about thorny soil, people who hear the gospel, people who hear about Jesus, but then something bad happens in life and kind of chokes out the hope of Jesus. And they choose to walk away because life just beat them up too much. And the final type of soil that Jesus talks about is good soil, where the gospel lands, where the message of Jesus hits and takes root. And people accept Jesus and say, I'm going to follow him because he gave up everything for me. And that's what I want to talk about today, that the name of Jesus demands a response. That some people love to hear about Jesus. They would have conversation about him all day. Some people would rather be punched in the face than talk about Jesus. But we all have a reaction. We all have a response to Jesus, to the name of Jesus. And your reaction describes what kind of soil you are. And that's what the reality of it is that our hope, our prayer for every student or every person watching this video is that you are good soil, that you hear the name of Jesus, that you hear the message of the gospel, and you choose to follow him, and you choose to give your life to him and chase after Jesus with everything. And that's our big idea for tonight. Our big idea for tonight is this. The message of the gospel is going to be shared. But what matters most is our reaction when we hear it. The message of the gospel is going to be shared, but what matters most is our reaction when we hear it. You see, the message of Jesus, the gospel, is going to go out. Like, it's going to happen. But what matters most is when we hear it. What's our response? What kind of soil are we when we respond to Jesus? Okay? That's our big idea for tonight. And as we get that out there, I want to look at a couple questions I want us to answer tonight. Our first question is this. What is Jesus asking you to do? What is your next step? Some of us in this room, if we're really honest, we would say, man, I'm hard soil. like I've never wanted anything to do with Jesus, like I don't believe in him. And your next step is to just say, why don't I believe in Jesus? To ask those questions, okay? Some of us, we would answer that we've been shallow soil, that we got excited about Jesus, but we just kind of gave up on him. Maybe you need to look, what does a committed relationship look like for you? That our hope is that all of us can say that we want to, or that we are good soil. And for some of us who would say, yeah, I'm good soil, like I've heard about Jesus, I love Jesus, I have a relationship with him, that you would say, what is my next step? Is my next step baptism? This act that's saying, hey, I belong to Jesus, I'm his, I love him, I have a relationship with Jesus. Is it serving in our church or in the church you're at? What's your next step with Jesus? What is he asking you to do? That's our first question. Our second question is this. It's just a reflective one. What is your response to Jesus? What kind of soil are you? Our prayer and our hope is that everyone watching this video could say that I'm good soil, that I've accepted the message of the gospel, I've accepted Jesus, and I love him, and I've got a relationship with him, I'm growing with him daily. I'm listening for his voice and what he wants me to do. But personally, I want you to ask yourself and consider, what kind of soil are you? How are you responding to Jesus? It's my prayer that you are good soil, that you know the love of Jesus, and that you have a relationship with him.